The Albanese government has identified 67 defence sites for potential sale, aiming to unlock up to $1.8 billion as the Australian Defence Force moves to address critical capability gaps and redirect investment towards northern bases and infrastructure supporting the AUKUS programme. Defence and National Security correspondent Olivia Casely joins us now with more. Hi, Liv. So what's behind the sell-off?
Well, this is all about delivering better value for the taxpayer. So currently, the Australian government and the Australian Defence Force has a sprawling defence estate portfolio with properties right across Australia. But a lot of them have fallen into major disrepair and are described in this report released today as essentially beyond economic repair. So we've seen this independent audit carried out, and it's identified 68 properties that could be sold off because they're not meeting any sort of important capability gaps. The government has agreed to 67 of those properties and will consider selling those off in the coming years. The total sale of those properties would generate around $3 billion in revenue, but once they take into account remediation costs, relocation costs for staff and that kind of thing, the actual revenue raised will be closer to $1.8 billion, and that'll be reinvested into the Australian Defence Force. A lot of this audit has come about as a response of the Defence Strategic Review, which took a look at Australia's capabilities and really suggested that it needed to, relocate a lot of the bases northward and reprioritise that investment to the north of Australia. And we've seen major work underway at bases such as the RAF base Tyndall, which is in Katherine in the Northern Territory. So a lot of investment has been happening there. Ultimately, we've also seen major efforts by the government too, because they recognise that they have to reinvest in projects that are going to support the AUKUS nuclear submarine pact. Here's the Defence Minister Richard Marles at Parliament House early this morning making this sweeping announcement.
It was thorough, it was exhaustive, but in so many ways it was also damning. And I do want to take you to some of what the report says. On page 33, and I'm quoting, it says, "Defence is constrained by the weight of its past when it comes to management of the estate. Today's estate footprint comprises numerous legacy sites without a clear ongoing link to current or future capabilities. Urgent interventions are needed to correct the unsustainable trajectory that has resulted from decades of deferred decisions on contentious estate issues."
And some significant sites have been identified, Livia.
Yeah, they really have. So there's a slew of high-profile properties that have been identified or earmarked for sale. So they include Victoria Barracks in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, Spectacle Island in New South Wales, and HMAS Penguin, which is in that state as well. So they're among those that have been earmarked for divestment. When it comes to the breakdown of these properties, really 10 sites are listed for disposal. They're already vacant, another 14 were only occasionally used, and the government's essentially agreed to dispose of or fully dispose of 67 of the sites. So really, Defence Minister Richard Marles this morning making the point that these sites, they're not really adding to the Australian Defence Force's capabilities, and therefore it's not going to be a burden on the Defence Force if they were to be sold off. And he was really speaking up the benefits of that reinvestment. Some of the properties, though, are likely to ruffle feathers among the defence community due to their historic ties or their legacy. But Richard Marles did, anticipate some of that criticism this morning, as you'll hear here.
I also want to make clear that the heritage value of these properties does not belong to the Australian Army or, for that matter, the Australian Defence Force. It belongs to the Australian people. And right now, the Australian people are prevented from seeing these properties. They exist behind a defence wall.
As we know, in the background of all of this, there is a housing crisis in Australia. Potentially, that one of the benefits of this sell-off could be that those sites could be freed up for more housing for Australians.